So today we're going to be talking about lap zippers. And a lap zipper is a zipper. This is my sample. This is my pretend skirt. A lap zipper is a zipper that's usually on the side seam of a skirt or a pair of pants. And it has this overlap to it that goes across the zipper, so you can still access the zipper and open and close it, but it's typically hidden by this overlap. So we're going to learn how to install that today. This particular application is usually for the side seams of pants or dresses, and I have a skirt here to show. You can't see it because of my overlay, but this is a lapped application right here. So this is where my waistband has attached to the top of my underskirt, and my zipper is right here. So you see there's an extra big extension that covers the zipper right here so that you can't see it. So the zipper is hidden underneath this placket here that's a little wider than the zipper itself so that you can't see it. And that's what I'm going to be showing you how to do right here. So the first thing that we're going to do is to remember that all the stitching is done to the inside of your garment. So this is just a sample piece that I have here so that you can see it's just a simple square piece, but the way I install the zipper will be the same way you install it on a regular garment. I went ahead and interfaced where my zipper is going to go to strengthen the seam and to where my zipper is going to go. And I'm also going to mark, I want my zipper to stop about right here. So here down, I'm going to do a regular stitch, just a regular stitch here. Here, going up, I'm going to do a long basting stitch on my machine. So a basting stitch here, and then a regular stitching right here, whatever it is that you use for your garment or whatever, however you need it. So I'm going to pin all this together, matching up my edges and my points and my notches and anything else on my garment. I'm going to move my mark over so I know this is where my basting stops. So I'm going to put my fabric under my machine, and I'm going to do a long basting stitch until this point right here, and then I'm going to change my stitch length to about a 2.6, which is how I normally sew, and do my normal stitch length all the way down here. My seam allowance is going to be I do a 1/2 inch seam allowance normally, so let's go ahead and add my seam allowance so that you can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to do a 5/8 seam allowance. I've marked my 5/8 seam allowance with the long purple line here. So this is where I'm going to do my basting all the way to this point. And then from this point, I'm going to do my regular stitching. So now we're going to lay our zipper on top of our seam line, but we're going to do this in a particular way. We're going to unzip our zipper, and then we're going to flop it over so that the right side of the zipper pull, will be laying against the seam. We're going to take the left side of the zipper and we're going to place it bumped up against the seam line right here. We're also going to make sure that we place the bottom of our zipper where we had marked. You can place it right, the metal stop right above or right below where you marked at. Just make sure you have plenty of room at the top. Now a tip here would be if you get a longer zipper that goes over the edge right here, then you don't have to worry about measuring anything, because it's a lot easier to cut a zipper short than it is to try to add to it. So if you get an extra long zipper, you can have it hang over the edge, and then when you add your waistband, you can just trim it off, and that would help take care of that. The zipper stops up here and you don't have to worry about measuring to make a final placement. Just make sure you have the bottom of your zipper located where you want it, either with the zipper stop above the mark where we marked it at, that goes from the basting to the natural seam stitching line here. So we're just going to bump our coils right up against the seam line right here, and we're going to pin our zipper down just to the seam allowance. We're not going through all the fabric, just the seam allowance. And we're also going to mark an inch up from the zipper stop, and we're going to mark it right there. And that's where we're going to start at. So when we get on the machine, we're going to sew just the seam allowance and the zipper. Any extra fabric is going to be pushed to the side so that when we place this on the machine, we're going to start at the mark and sew just down here. Now we want to get close to the coil. We don't want to be right on top of the coil, but we want to get a little closer to the coils. So if we use our narrow stitch foot, make sure that the needle is on the left side to get the stitch to get as close to the coils as we need. Okay, I make sure that I have my zipper foot on, and I'm changing my needle position so that my needle will go down into the left hand hole there. I'm lining my zipper coils up against the foot here, and we're just going to stitch on down. Now that we have the zipper attached this way, this is going to be stitching that's not going to be shown on your garment. It's still going to stay right here in the seam allowance. We're going to take our zipper and we're going to flip it over. We're going to flip it this way. So we're just going to move everything to the side. So all the fabric and seam allowances are now pointing to the right, and your zipper's on the left. We're going to go ahead and zip up that zipper just like this. And you should have about 1/8 of an inch right here between the seam line that we basted and the seam line that we sewed to the zipper. We're going to go back to the sewing machine and we're going to sew down right here in this seam, in this little bit, that 1/8 of an inch strip right there, which also means we're going to, that 1 inch that we left unsewn right here, we're going to sew that down in this process as well. So we just need to match it up, finger press everything open, just like this, just like that. Finger press it open. If you need to put pins in, you can put a pin in to keep everything in place. And we're going to sew through all the layers. So starting at the bottom, once again, we're going to stitch right along in that 1/8 of an inch through all layers of fabric, but make sure that it's just your zipper here and all your garment fabric is off to the right side, or whatever side. If you decide to start from here or there, just make sure that your garment fabric is off to the side so that it doesn't get caught. So it should only be right here. Before I do any sewing, I line the edge of the fabric up with the right side of my foot, and I need to move my needle so that it comes over onto this hole over here. So I'm going to do that. I think it's 5.5. Yep, 5.5. So now I'm going to stitch all the way down. Okay, so this is what our zipper looks like right now. So the zipper has been attached to just that seam allowance, and we have, now we're going to open up the wrong side just like this, and however the zipper falls to the right, we're just going to pin it down, because now we're going to sew the line around the zipper. So this will be our last bit of stitching here for this. We will be sewing through the garment front, so our seam allowances, even though it was 5/8 of an inch, is still going to be a bit short here. So if you wanted something to pop out, then you will need to make sure that you add an extension to this seam allowance, or whichever side. If you're going to do this on the left or the right, it depends on how you put this in. So this is going to be hidden to the inside, but if you need to add an extension to it, just adding a strip of fabric to that seam allowance will help you with that. So now what we're going to do, we're going to stitch from our seam allowance. We need to figure out where that's at. So I'm just going to pop a hole straight through our seam allowance. So right here, actually I already have it marked, lucky me. And I'm going to start from here. So actually when it goes on my machine, I'm I'm going to start from here to where that center seam is, because that's where I want my stitching to start, at that center seam, which I've marked. I'm going to go across the coils, and then I'm going to go stay close to the coils, and I'm going to stitch all the way down to the top. Now, with the zipper pull here, if you had a zipper that was longer by a couple of inches and extended across the top of your garment, then you don't have to worry about the weird wonky little kind of U shape that you get as you try to sew around the zipper pull. So if you get a zipper that's longer than what is required, you don't have to worry about that wonky little U shape. You can just have a straight stitch going up, because your zipper pull would be hanging out over here somewhere, and then you can just trim the zipper down when you need to add your waistband. But I did not do that, so we're going to have a weird, funky little U shape when I sew past it. So I've marked here, that's where the center seam is, and I'm going to sew an L shape straight up. So I'm going to keep my needle in the same position that I had it in. It's on the right side of my narrow zipper foot here. I'm just going to line up the mark that I made from my center seam so that I'm on the right side. I'm also going to make sure I have long thread tails. I'm going to have long thread tails, because those thread tails are going to be pulled to the back side and tied off. Line up that mark right there. I'm going to go over the coils. And then I'm going to line my zipper foot up right against those coils, and I'm just going to move on down. So my coils are riding right against the back side of my zipper foot. Now I'll have a thread here from the top, and I have a thread here from the bottom. So I'll need to take this thread here, this extra thread. I'm going to take these two threads, and with a needle I'm going to pull those threads to the back side. I've got both of them. I'm going to thread this needle real quick. We're going to pull them back. Just like that. So now you have no thread here on this side. It's here on the back side. And I'm going to put a knot in these threads right here. Just a simple old square knot. I'll probably do like 3 or 4 of them. There you go. Trim that. Trim my extra threads here. Okay, and this is what it looks like. I don't know if you can see it. I practiced on this before I started filming, and so I have some blue marks here on the right side, but my sewing marks are actually here on my left side. So this is where I just stitched, and there's that little U shape right here. See that little U shape? That's where I sewed around my zipper pull. So like I said, if you have your zipper and you extend it past, so your zipper pull hangs off the edge here, you won't have that U shape right there. But this is just where I stitched at, starting in my L shape right here. This is from a prior attempt, and so you can ignore that part. So now that I've done this part, my zipper is completely installed, and I'm going to cut the basting. So starting at here at the bottom, there we go. Take all my basting out. Here we go. And now I have a lapped zipper. And this is what you would have whenever you have a pant or a skirt on the side of your garment. Okay? There you go. It's hidden on the inside. You got an overlap here. Just zip it on down. Everything's hidden within the seam allowances behind the zipper, so we're good. And there you go. And that is called a lap zipper. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I have a couple of extra videos coming out because I wanted to talk about lap zippers, just like we learned here. I want to do a centered zipper, and then I want to show you how to do an invisible zipper. But those are going to be 2 more videos coming down after this one. I want to make sure that you guys understand what I'm trying to show you, so if you have any comments or questions, throw them down in the comment box below. Remember to always click the subscribe button and hit that notification bell and give me a thumbs up. I always appreciate that. If you ever want to support my channel, all my links are down in the description box below. And I will see you guys in the next video. And remember, the sewing room will eventually be cleaned. I really like that phrase because that's usually how it goes. I just chaos and mess behind me all over the place. And so, yeah, there you go. So eventually the sewing room will be cleaned when I find time. I'll see you in the next video.